to a solo episode of Marc My Words. I am your host, Mark Schmidt. Today, I'm going to talk about a topic that, for some reason, I've been seeing this topic floating around in the universe a lot here of late, and it could just be a reflection of where we're at in society right now. I, for one, have been living the life of running a podcast and working a full time job for the entire history of Mark My Words. And I feel like this might be a topic that will resonate with people, even if you don't have a podcast, but you have like your own business. This topic might still resonate with you, but I think I'm just going to speak in terms of a podcast because that has been my main focus over the past 6 years. And let me tell you, it is not an easy life to balance doing a show like this and work a full time job. And there's a lot of mental fatigue that plays into it, a lot of balancing your time, a lot of wanting downtime, and just fighting all those battles of, well, I don't know if I really feel up to doing this today, but I have it scheduled. I have a guest they're expecting to be there, and I gotta turn it on because even though what you're getting from me is 110% authenticity, this is still like a role. It's like you're playing a role when you're the host, and it's like I hate to like compare it to acting, but I don't really know what else really to measure it up to. But you're definitely like you need to take time to prepare and get familiar with the person you're going to be talking to. So that takes time. I mean, there's if I feel like if you want to do a good job as a podcast host and as just a podcaster in general, just from a production side, you have to take time if you want to book a guest. You already have to take time to get familiar with your guests and prepare. Just prepare, like, what do you want to talk about? What direction do you want the episode to go in? And those of you who have been listening to Mark My Words for years, you know that I'm pretty organic about it. So I basically like to just know what I want to talk about, at least to kick off an episode. I like being ready and familiar. I like to know a little bit about my guests, but I also don't want to know too much. So I used to do pre meetings, like pre podcast meetings, and I'm not really like against it, but I think one reason I cut that part of my process out is not only because it's a lot more time, but I also get a lot of guests from Podmatch, which really streamlines the process really well. So I feel like I already kind of have a good feel for my guests prior to the episode. So I don't necessarily like to do it for time reasons. I also like the idea of not knowing too much. Because I almost feel like the thing that makes this show fun is that I don't know too much. So I almost feel like if I do a pre-meeting and I get to know my guests on that level already, then it's like, why am I doing the episode? Why not just do the episode up front and get to know them, be surprised, be a bit spontaneous, and bring that level of authenticity rather than it feeling like kind of scripted. So, in that way, that's kind of how I'm managing the time aspect of doing a podcast and working full time. So, just the things I've learned there have kind of helped to eliminate some time grabbers, for lack of a better way to describe that. But the process isn't the same for everybody. I'm sure if I did a different type of show, different topic or whatever, different length, then it might require something different. It might be more time, might be less. Who knows? But to do, for me at least, to do an interview show, that's what it takes just to, I think, balance out work. Because when I'm working my full time job, I have to focus on the job. And I am blessed with a very flexible work schedule. And that's not something that everybody has. So I know that I can take little blips of time to just, think about and meditate about the episode. I can take a break and adjust my hours to reflect, just me doing an episode. And I'll tell you what, sometimes for me to do an episode in the middle of the day rather than waiting until the very end of my day can be really like a great mental reboot. And there's something about doing this show that I always feel really energized after I do an episode. And the episodes are very, very rarely not good or just not a good vibe or whatever. It's always a fun time and a good vibe, and somehow I get a boost of energy from that energy of having a good conversation with a guest. So I feel like for as much as like the grind of my workday kind of runs me down, I also have doing these episodes, especially even if it's on, the very end of my day before I truly unwind, it can be just a great way to go into the evening. And sometimes that energy takes me into the next day. And I think in that regard, it helps me mentally a lot, especially when I'm dealing with a lot of stuff. And I know, especially the past like 6-ish months, I've been dealing with a lot of stuff just personally, and it's been like I've never felt the type of mental fatigue that I've gone through at times over the past like few months. And over the course of the past 6 years, I've definitely had my battles with mental fatigue or just doubts about doing the show or whatever the case might be. And all those things can kind of like run you down a little bit. And those are the moments where you do need to step away and think about your mental health. And that can go a long way. basically how I feel about the mental health aspect of it is it's better to take the time out and rest and recharge and reboot and kind of like go through whatever emotions, whatever you're going through, go through it and get offline from it and, you know, go back to it when you feel recharged, when you're feeling that spark again. And that has always proven to be a good system. I mean, I took the entire year of 2023 off from podcasting for that reason because I needed that time to mentally recharge and I didn't even know whether I was going to continue to do Mark My Words at the time. And I probably didn't need to take quite that much time away from it. But I'm glad I did because it taught me just how much doing this show means to me. And I know that eventually I'm going to come back around. I mean, nobody knows what the future is going to look like or what the future of podcasting is going to look like. But I just know that I've built something here and I feel like it's probably after 6 years doing all these episodes, having all these experiences, these little successes, I feel like it's probably just not in my best interest to truly walk away and pack it in. But nonetheless, I'm kind of like just getting off track a little bit here. But next thing I kind of want to get into is like just talk a little bit about my system. So I guess I already kind of talked a little bit about that, but how I schedule recordings. So I always make sure that my workday comes first, and that's like my main focus. Although this show and building myself up and my own personal goals, obviously very important, but you know, the day job pays the bills, so I make sure that I always schedule around that and I don't even create big blocks of time to give to my guests. I give out maybe 2 3 hour blocks per day, really, and it's really like a Monday through Thursday thing. So it's gonna take a bit more time to get those like 50, 60 episodes that you might want to fill your schedule for the year. And no way can I do like 100 or, you know, put out 2 or 3 episodes a week. That's just not realistic. But I try to just maintain a realistic goal and I try to batch the episodes and especially if I take a break, like I just took a bit of a break over the past like month or so, got to a point where the queue ran empty. So the next step for me is to say, okay, don't panic. Maybe create a couple of solo episodes, which is something I've been trying to do, and just batch the episodes back up, get that queue going, and as it stands right now, if I stay on track, if my guests show up uh, per the schedule I currently have laid out, before I know it, I'm gonna have like a couple months of episodes in, and that's going to give me a lot of room to pace myself a little more, to focus on things a little more personal to me, like my own life, my job, etc. And it's going to help me if things come up to where I do kind of burn out or something comes up in my life. Then cool, great. I have a batch of episodes already ready to go. And I try to at least stay a few months ahead. Uh, Usually no less than like a month, but obviously at this point it became like a lot less than that, and that's okay. You learn not to put too much pressure on yourself, and I know when we all commit ourselves to something like this, we want to succeed and we want to do well, and we don't want to disappear from sight, and we want to be visible, but you also have to take care of yourself. And that part of it is very important. It might be the most important thing. So that that for me is probably more important than anything in my system, really. Um, as far as like editing, so I kind of formatted this show from the beginning for a reason, and basically I guess I made this like an interview, hit record, hit stop at the end kind of format, so that I wouldn't have to do tons of editing. And I don't know if I'm crazy or just that confident in my ability to do this and my ability to prepare. And I don't know if everybody is capable of doing that. That's a hard one to answer. But I do know that that's one way in which I do this show without having to put a ton of work in. Do I have to edit from time to time? Yeah, I have to clean up some audio sometimes. And I have the what apparently seems to be the dreaded intro and outro that I also use for my episodes, which there's been so much talk about whether it's useful to have an intro or an outro, which I know for a creative type like myself, when you dream about having your own product, your own show, whether it's a YouTube show or a film or in this case a podcast, it's like, wow, I get an opportunity to create like a little bit of an intro and outro to set that like mood or that mindset. And as it turns out, it is 2026, and people don't necessarily want a lot of that. So that's actually something I've been thinking about, whether I'm going to toy with that and actually start maybe minimizing or even removing the intro and the outro, which if I do that, that's even less editing than I was doing before. So, it just all depends on what kind of system you want to run, what kind of show you want to run, and yeah, I mean that's basically how I do a show, how I run one from a systematic point of view, and then go as far as like ideas for this show. Now, I'm trying to dig into maybe doing some more creative type of episodes and themes, which I still like. I know I've been thinking for years about doing like a mental health kind of theme with one or more guests, but usually it's just like I receive the the guest like inquiry. I read their message and I just decide whether what they do and what they have to talk about will be of value to the audience and whether it's something like a little bit different and unique and whether it will just be a good fit. So, for this type of show, there isn't like a ton of thinking about like ideas and whatnot. The ideas basically like come to me more than I have to draw them up. Now, as I'm kind of like moving through my little outline, I know in the previous solo episode, I mentioned that I used ChatGPT to give me kind of like a outline for a solo episode, and I'm actually, I know in the episode reintroducing myself, I didn't follow it very much, but I am following it here because it seems to make sense what they gave me. So in the spirit of being honest, I mean these are all my thoughts. It's not AI didn't write any of this. This is just all coming from my head. But I like this outline. So, if you're still not on the bandwagon for using ChatGPT or another AI source, I mean, it it does help. It does work as a collaborator of sorts. But anyway, I'm like getting off on a tangent. I think I talked a bit already about burnout, and I'm gonna be honest. This episode, I'm at the end of my work week at the moment, and I am definitely running on empty. I'm like logged out of work. I decided I wanted to do this before I just go and relax. And I'm going to be right up front. The way I'm doing this episode is not completely perfect. It's really like just from the heart and just from my mind. And this is a good point that ChatGPT jotted down. You do have to accept imperfect episodes, especially the way that I do them, because no matter what you're doing, if you're working a full time job, your mental health is never going to be completely 100%. You may have some days where you're riding high and you're right on the money and everything is great, but you might be at the end of your work week doing an episode with a guest or coming off a really long day, and it's hard. It's hard to be at your best, but when you prepare and you at least get familiar with your guests and you have a good idea, then those imperfect moments, like in the episode, or just an episode that you feel wasn't completely perfect, it just shows how human you are. And I think that that kind of thing can be endearing to the audience. So don't put too much pressure on yourself when it comes to being perfect. Like, my cat's wandering and meow and do weird stuff from time to time. That gets captured, and that's okay. Sometimes I get a phone call while I'm recording, and you know what? That's okay. I have a life. I'm recording this from my home. I'm not in a studio, and I almost don't want to come across as completely perfect because that's not my personality and that's not really the vibe that I want to put out there. But you should not force anything, and you should take breaks when you need them, and it goes a long way when you truly are tapped out and you take that time and you give yourself permission to be a human being, you know? So just give yourself grace and enjoy the ride and have fun, but also recognize when life is lifing and you just need to focus more on your home life, focus more on just balance and quality of life. Maybe you gotta focus more on work, whatever. Like, sometimes your passion just isn't the most important thing. Now, I've been doing this show for 6 years, and you might be asking, why do I still show up? Why do I keep doing this? And I know that I tackled this in the reintroducing myself episode a little bit, but I'm going to just go over that part of it again. I mean, I think I've always been a creative person, and I think that there is like an extroverted side of me inside of this introverted like shell that I have, and basically I'm just kind of like, I don't know, I'm almost like an actor who is a little bit reserved, but once they hit the stage or once the on air light goes off or once the director says action, they come out of that shell. And I think that is probably a good analogy for uh, one of the reasons why I show up. I just feel like this has always been inside of me, but I have kind of just limited myself, didn't believe that people would want to listen or want to watch. And through the whole process of networking and meeting people who did see something in me and believed in me, that kind of brought me to where I am today. And that is a big reason why I still show up, because I feel like there is still work to be done as far as just showing people that you can get past whatever obstacles or any other mind blocks that you have in order to do something that is bigger than just climbing the corporate ladder. And I don't say that to be trivial about climbing the corporate ladder, but there was a long period of time where that was my goal more than, like, I guess, having a little more personal fulfillment. Like, I guess personal fulfillment for me equaled becoming like a VP or a director in a company. And, hey, maybe I'm still meant to do something like that. Who knows? But I think it was important for me to learn and step back and say, you know what? I need to do some things for myself. And that's a big part of it too. And I mean, I love connecting with all these really amazing, smart people who I never would have met otherwise. And just building those relationships and creating something together with these awesome people and just listening to their stories and wisdom, it's been hugely impactful to my life. And I hope that it's bringing something to other people's lives. I mean, I'll be upfront. I do a lot of this for selfish reasons, but I also do it for unselfish reasons too, because I really want to have meaningful conversations. I really do want to impact people, and I hope that if people who are not necessarily doing a podcast or even an entrepreneur, I hope that by doing this, it gives them like the aha moment that they need to maybe start a business or start a podcast and do something that is meaningful to them. And these are all just, I grew up just battling all of these things and, born with a cleft lip and palate and just had all these obstacles, all these things put into my head. And for me to get this far and to be doing this well, it's just, I feel like it's just not right for me to walk away from that. And you always learn from your mistakes and just from the times where things don't go the way you want them to. And I know I've had a few moments where I doubted what I was doing or had an episode that I had to just scrap because the vibe just wasn't right for the episode. And it's hard. Like, it's like a gut punch because this show is a representation of me. So the fact that I would just basically, I guess, fail in my own mind, I mean, that's kind of rough. And it does mess with you mentally. And, you just, I always say that if you have the passion for what you're doing, like truly, truly, truly have it, you will eventually dust yourself off and keep on going. And I mean, I think for all those reasons, this is why I make time for it. Now, the final point that they gave me here on this rundown is what working full time has actually taught me about podcasting. And, you know, they have a point here, discipline beats motivation. And I mean, sure, you need to be disciplined, but you also gotta be motivated. I mean, you can't just be disciplined and robotic and not have motivations or, you know, inspiration. Like this one here even says systems matter more than inspiration. I mean, I don't know about that because, I mean, as somebody working a full time job, the system, the discipline to keep showing up, this stuff matters, but, you know, emotionally, I have to be inspired and motivated. I have to be motivated to actually hit record and to do it. And I have to feel inspired by the people I'm bringing on the show, or there's just no point in doing it. Uh, Consistency, I mean, look, I've really tried to be consistent, and that's part of the reason that I'm doing these solo episodes right now is to continue to be consistent. And like I basically have posted at least one episode, mostly interview episodes, sometimes solo episodes. I've been going for about 2 years straight, which that was me coming off of that long break of 2023. And consistency does matter and it does pay off, but again, you also have to take care of yourself. And I mean, it is definitely taught me that the consistency and applying all these things like a system, discipline, motivation, being inspired, it all kind of like factors in uh, life experience. So this is an actual good point they're making here. Life experience does really factor in, especially for the type of show that I do, because I feel like whether it's just my general experience of working in the television industry or it's my experience as a business owner and podcast host or whatever, fill in the blank, or just working my job every single day, just being a part of a full time department and culture within a company. I mean, yeah, that those experiences, whether they've already been lived or I'm living them now, they definitely factor in as far as the content and the episodes and the conversation. And I definitely think that without that, I would maybe lose a little bit of touch with that unless having enough streams of income to do all this full time would give me other opportunities to stay engaged. That part I don't really know. But what I do know is a full time job doesn't disqualify you from building a business or even just something as simple as a podcast. And it really, I think, it has taught me just the quality and the importance of managing your time. And I think I'm big on the fact that time is precious and you need to manage your time in a way that's beneficial, whether it is creating something like a business or a podcast, or it's giving yourself grace and resting and giving yourself a reboot from just being mentally fatigued or discouraged or whatever it is. And I mean, kind of just rounding this episode out, I don't know for sure if I actually truly captured like how one can keep a podcast going while working full time, but I can say that balancing your time, having a good system, and maintaining good mental health and just being real with yourself can go a long way. I mean, I can sit here and talk about the tools that I use and all the other technical kind of things that I might want to include in an episode like this. But I think when it comes down to it, if you really want to do it, you will figure it out. You will put together the right kind of calendar and make the right kind of time, whether it's restful time or work time, and you will do all the things that you need to do in order to make it work. And I think that's really what it comes down to is it just basically comes down to you at the end of the day, which this is for me because I have done about 40 minutes of this talk. And look, I've been doing a podcast for 6 years now. At this point, I'm closing in on 200 episodes, and it's been a really rewarding, amazing experience. But there have there had to be I can't even talk anymore. I have had to make a lot of sacrifices. So giving up free time to watch TV, to play video games, whatever it might be, you do have to sacrifice some time, and you have to budget around your own priorities, your mental health, and your day job in order to make something like this work. So I really hope that this episode brought some value. I'm just, with the help of ChatGPT, I'm just kind of freestyling this and just talking from experience. And, you know, don't know what the future's going to bring, don't know what is going to change, but I do know that I reached a point where I said to myself, when it comes to how I produce the show, how I have everything arranged as far as booking guests and the decisions I make to act like the actual system of the business and the format of the show, I just had just general moment. I don't even know when it was, but I just said, you know what? This is working. And this works for the product that I'm trying to create. And when you reach that moment, you know at the very least you are onto something good. So, with all that being said, thank you very much for tuning in to this solo episode of Mark My Words. I, again, am your host, Mark Schmidt, and I thank you for tuning in, and I will see you soon with another episode. And if you're out there working a full-time job and podcasting, I tip my cap to you. I can relate. I know exactly what it's like. But if you're feeling stuck, or you're in a downtime, or you're unsure of whether you can keep going, I say totally keep going, because it will pay off and it will be worth it. And the podcasts that continue on and keep going, even if they don't have thousands of downloads, it's still meaningful to keep going, because the fact your longevity is going to matter in the long run. I know I see it all the time, just with how my longevity has paid off. And just from experience, just keep on going, but take care of yourself and your mental health and your own life and priorities. That comes first, but you can do it. I hope that I have proven that you can do it. I feel a tremendous amount of pride and fulfillment from the fact that I am here and I'm even doing an episode like this. So, anyway, again, you just listen to Mark My Words. I'm Mark Schmidt. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you soon with another episode.